6:30 in New York. Fox News alert now. There is more outrage after the New York Times issues a report claiming that the Benghazi terror attack was not a premeditated al-Qaeda assault. 4 Americans, including Ambassador Chris Stevens, killed that night. Survivors on the ground slamming the report, telling Fox News, quote, "It was a coordinated attack. It is completely false to say anything else. It is completely a lie." Utah Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz has been fighting for answers for, well, more than a year now. He's on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. He's back in his hometown of Salt Lake City. He's also the first congressman in Tripoli, since traveled there a second time as well. And good morning to you, Congressman. What
morning,
did
Bill.
you think of the New York Times story as reported yesterday?
Well, a good reporter has done some good stuff, but in this case, I think he's a bit shallow on the facts. The idea that the video perpetuated this attack, I believe, is false. When I was there in Tripoli some 21 days or so after the attack, there wasn't a single person who ever brought up the video, because it never, ever happened. It wasn't part of the attack. The Accountability Review Board, unfettered access to all the information for about 90 days, submitted their report to Hillary Clinton, handpicked by Hillary Clinton, gave the report to Hillary Clinton, said there was no video involvement here. She even agreed with that. So for the New York Times to suggest that a video was the reason for this, I think is just not accurate.
The reporter is David Kirkpatrick, and you know him?
I'm not sure I've ever had any contact with him. I don't remember.
What he told Chris Wallace, and Mike Rogers with Chris Wallace. What he told David Gregory in Meet the Press is this: if by al-Qaeda you mean the organization founded by Osama bin Laden, is there a distinction to be made there or not?
Yeah, it sounds like a distinction without a difference. I mean, the reality is we have been bombed twice previously. Al-Qaeda was flying flags above government buildings there in Benghazi, which is not the biggest of towns. To suggest that there wasn't an Al-Qaeda presence in the area and that they had no affiliation, even Adam Schiff, a very responsible Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, as well as Chairman Mike Rogers, they both unanimously, the two of them, they both came back and said, no, look, clearly you cannot dismiss the Al-Qaeda ties to what happened in Benghazi.
Well, we had Peter King on last hour. I asked him this question. I'll give you a shot at it as well. There will be a difference of opinion on Benghazi, it appears, for some time. Yeah. Why do you believe that is the case 15, 16 months later?
Because the administration has not allowed us access to all the information. The American people have not been given the truth. The reason that the New York Times is still doing a story is because the truth has not yet been told. We have not heard in a public setting from the witnesses who are on the ground. And when you look at what happened before in the death trap that was created in Benghazi, the night of the attack and the 24 hours and the lack of the military response, and then the lies perpetuated by the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton herself for the weeks afterwards, I mean, and we've got 4 dead Americans. Nobody's been captured or killed. So to suggest that this is some phony scandal, as Susan Rice and others are trying to continue to suggest, is just absolutely offensive to a lot of people. And we just haven't gotten the truth yet, Bill.
The Fox News also reporting that there had been about a week-long series of meetings in Libya and about Libya. Talking about the threat there. And apparently it was determined that and identified that al-Qaeda was the largest and most significant threat in Libya, in that country, all the way up to the final briefing on September 10th. Do you know about that briefing, and what light can you shed on it?
There's a lot of information. Not all of it I can talk about on national television.
Understood.
Some classified as well as unclassified. You can go to YouTube and find videos of parades that they had with Al-Qaeda type flags being flown around the city there prior to the attack. Every report that you read would lead you to believe that there were a lot of militants, a lot of terrorist attacks, some of them affiliated with Al-Qaeda. And Hillary Clinton, for 5 months after the attack, to say, you know, what difference does it make, is terribly offensive, and probably part of the reason we haven't been able to bring anybody to justice, and part of the fear that we have that this administration is not taking this seriously enough to bring people to justice or prevent another attack. That's the biggest concern.
Yeah. There are some suggesting the reason why the story was written was to give Hillary Clinton cover. Do you agree with them?
I cannot attest to the purity of the New York Times, but I got to tell you, this narrative is something we've never heard, is void of the facts, contrary to what Hillary Clinton's own Accountability Review Board came up with, something I haven't seen. You got a bipartisan group of intelligence people that serve on the Intelligence Committee saying, no, that's not true. I just don't think it's an accurate portrayal of the truth. And that's all we're after, Bill. We're just trying to get to the truth and prevent it from happening again.
Well, you mentioned the witnesses on the ground. Remember Greg Hicks, right? He was the deputy to the ambassador, Chris Stevens. He talked about the video as a non-event in Libya at the time. When will that be clarified and finalized then?
Well, we've heard time and time again. Again, when you, as I did, 21 days after the attack, I visited with General Ham, the 4-star general there with AFRICOM. I visited people that were there on the ground in Tripoli. I was there the entire time. The video was never, ever mentioned because it was not a factor. It didn't even come up one time. So to try to have to prove a negative, the reality is if you look at the totality of the attack, the sustained attack, the fact that they had these RPGs in a very coordinated fashion, this was not some 15-minute brawl. This went on for hours and hours and hours and was very successful in the minds of these terrorist groups. The reality is that video didn't create some spontaneous attack there in Benghazi. It wasn't true then. It's not true now. And I think that's where the facts will continue to bear it out.
This debate continues. Jason Chaffetz, thank you for your time, sir. Happy New Year to you as well.